Hi, Erin.
Hello there, Pursuing Freedom listeners, and thanks for tuning in today. This is going to be a great episode with my friend Susie Best, who is the team lead with the Best Properties group over at Keller Williams in the Highlands neighborhood of Denver, Colorado. And Susie and I have known each other for a couple years and hit it off immediately when I first met her. She really impressed me with just about everything, her personality, her attention to growing her business by referral. And she's just a wealth of knowledge. She has a team. She does a great business. She's a great human. So I think you're going to learn a lot and be really inspired today. Little background on Susie. She got into the business full-time back in the end of 2003 and pretty much launched her business solely on doing open houses and did that for years in order to build her database. And she'll share a little bit about how that process worked for her, but it really just comes down to relationship building, which is probably what it's always about. So Susie's a pro, and I'm really excited that we've got her on the show today. So welcome, Susie. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Erin. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and like we always start with a little bit of background. So tell us a little bit about what were you doing before you got into real estate, and what prompted you to take the leap and go full-time into real estate when you did back in that time period of 2003?
Well, I had a habit of changing careers every 3 years. Started out as a Peace Corps volunteer and then worked into advertising and ad sales. I did marketing for architecture and design, and worked as the director of business development and marketing at the Children's Museum. And ultimately, I adopted a 12-year-old and realized I needed a little more money. And that's when I did transition into ad sales. And from there, realized I wanted to sell something that had value instead of just people signing up for advertising based on my relationship with them. And so my mom had been a real estate agent after being a teacher, and I sort of never realized I'd do this, but followed in her footsteps and went into real estate because I realized I loved helping people. I loved the sales process. I loved the negotiating, but I wanted to make sure that there was an end result for my client and not just about a commission.
So I didn't know that about your mom being in real estate. Was she a sounding board for you when you launched into it? Did she have any advice for you when you first got started? Or, I mean, I asked other people whose parents preceded them in this industry, and it was funny because most of them have said that their parents told them not to go into real estate.
My mom was thrilled that I went into real estate, but my mom approached real estate as the social worker of real estate. She worked in low-income communities. She was bilingual and helped a lot of Spanish-speaking homeowners selling their houses and Spanish-speaking buyers purchase, and never really graduated beyond the social work side. She loved it, and it just filled her heart. And I sort of took that part of it, brought it into my business, and kind of combined it. I still do. I'm very passionate about helping my buyers, and I have taken that kind of social worker lead, but parlayed that into a little more of a business than my mom ever did.
So let me ask you something, because I don't know that I've ever asked you this, but it sounds like with your background, there was a splattering of marketing and sales in your previous lines of work. And so how did you carry that through to your real estate business? I know that you do a lot of kind of grassroots relationship building to grow your business, but what about marketing in general? What kind of marketing platforms do you guys use currently?
Well, we do. I have a presence on Zillow in the 80211 zip code where I do the majority of my business. But I find that presence in having exposure there still has to be coupled with good reviews. So from a marketing perspective, I always have felt that my best marketing is doing a great job in the transaction. I have never been one that really wants to hang out and have barbecues with my clients. Not that I don't love my clients, but I work hard and I like my personal time. So I find that if I really focus on doing an exemplary job and really wow them during the transaction, that is almost the best marketing I can do. And then learning how to remind them to refer people to me.
So you're pretty good about that, like just being vocal about the fact that you hope for the referrals if you do a great job for them?
I am, absolutely. I start from the very beginning. My very initial consultation is I say, let's talk about your agent expectations. And my goal is not just to meet, but hopefully exceed them. And if I do that, I'm hoping that they will take the time to write a nice review about me and refer me to the people they care about.
So that's awesome. Do you find, because I know you've had, how long has it been that you've been running a team? Or how long did you go solo agent before you started bringing on team members?
I was a solo, so I've been doing this full time for about 15 years, and I was a solo agent for 10, 9 or 10, and probably way too long. I should have brought someone on quicker than that, because the minute I had my very first team member working with me, my business doubled.
The same thing happened with me. And I talk to people about this all the time. So I feel like we need to dig into this a little bit, because I was a one-man band for 8 years before I brought on my first team member. And during those previous years leading up to the first team member, I was fully in the weeds, like completely overwhelmed.
Right.
And maxed out and not really even enjoying myself, even though the volume was great, which resulted in a healthy income. But ultimately, it was just not a lifestyle that I would want for myself or my family or anybody else for that matter. So when you made that leap and it doubled your business, because the same thing happened with me, what was it that was finally the catalyst for you to say, frankly, I'm taking my ego out of the way and not thinking that it has to be me that does every aspect? Like, what did it look like for you bringing on your first team member?
Well, I think first the decision was almost hitting a wall and am I going to get out of the business or get some help and figure this out? And for me, more than anything, it was about having fun. I got really tired of being an island unto myself, got tired of just the stress and carrying it all. And even, personally, I think that even my relationships were a little tired of hearing real estate stories because I didn't have anyone to bounce things off of. And as soon as I brought in my first kind of team member, he was a client of mine, and we have since become, absolutely best friends. And I was looking for a partner in crime, somebody that I could have fun with, that could bring the spark back into my business. And that's exactly what I got. Got someone that could kind of be my doppelganger, be in the places where I couldn't be. So we were able to double up. He also used he was very successful in converting leads at open houses and through Zillow by edifying me, saying things like, wow, I really love the agent I work with. You have got to meet her. She's one of the top agents. And it's a lot easier to have someone else say that about you than for you to say that about yourself. So it just became, a fun game of getting more clients, and servicing them was easy because I know how to do that and we love that. So it was just fun. It was fun to have it collaborative. I didn't need to go home and talk about real estate anymore because I had someone else who already knew the client, and we could kind of joke about funny things that happened or grumble about the challenges.
So for folks that are listening that, excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat. For folks that are listening that are at that stage of either they're trying out having team members and maybe they're having challenges, was there anything that you did in anticipation of bringing your first team member on that made it so successful? Like, did you map out the systems that you had in place, or was it very organic and by osmosis? When he came on, you just kind of said, like, we're going to do this together until you're ready to do it on your own?
Yes. B, organic osmosis. I just jumped in head first. Really, it was a client at the closing. He said, I'd love to be in real estate. And I said, well, get your license. I'd be happy to mentor you. He got his license. He joined our office and very quickly said, you know what, I'd really rather work with you than just be mentored by you and have my own business. And can we figure something like that out? And so I just knew I needed to do that anyway. So I just said yes, and we jumped in and we kind of figured it out. The beauty is there are so many, one of the reasons I'm at Keller Williams, there's so many systems out there, people that have already done this. I sort of did the reinvent the wheel approach to team building, and I didn't really have to, but I did.
So it's interesting because when I help other folks that are trying to go into that team building path, I made a lot of mistakes. So I try to help others get there faster and more successfully right out of the gates than we did. And one of the mistakes that we made was that we did it organically, which was wonderful for that first team member to have that, excuse me, that hands-on from me. But then as we brought on another team member, and, team member 1 was training number 2, then the next person came on, number 3, and that person really wanted a more structured approach, like some place to find an operations manual, some systems, a checklist, scripts, etc. And I realized with hindsight that those folks that came onto the team later, I had done them a disservice, because as we grew, they didn't all have that direct access to me as the trainer, so to speak, right? Mm-hmm. And then the osmosis gets diluted and the message gets filtered. And the next thing you know, folks are feeling confused and thrown in the fire. So I think that having it all mapped out can be a benefit to the people you're hiring, and then also to you, to be able to feel that you can offload it and that they don't have to guess all the stuff that's been in your head for 15 years. They can find it in a centralized location, right?
Right.
Do you feel, now, did you ever leverage your first team member to help create those systems for any future team members?
Well, it's interesting because I didn't do any personality assessment and really try and, to coin or to use that expression of making sure people are in the right seat on the bus. I didn't really do that. I hired someone that was similar to me and then said, hey, can you help me manage my database and systems? And turned out that was not his forte, but his forte was converting clients and working with clients. So we were both, scrambling, doubled the business, but still hadn't really put systems in place. We never, for the years we worked together, never even had a written agreement. It was literally on our system and everything worked out great, which is not the way anybody should probably do business. But I am literally in the process right now in a coaching program for me, a mastery coaching program at Keller Williams, getting all of the written documentation and systems in place. I'm 15 years down, and I would not recommend people going 15 years in their business without having everything documented. But I, have always had people kind of come on with the trust system, honor system, certainly compensating them with what they want, and nothing has backfired yet, but we have to put it in place because, as you said, providing that structure for people is so important. And what I am learning is also just, as a business owner and having people working in my business, it's my responsibility to also outline those expectations for them. So it's really clear. And then to be able to not say, oh, you're not really cutting it, but be able to very clearly say, hey, we set these expectations and you'd set goals of doing X, Y, and Z. These things were met. These things weren't met. What should we do? How are we going to work together to either get them met, or are we going down the wrong path? And gosh, it's a learning process for me. I've always said I'm not a good manager, and that's kind of like putting my head under a rock as a business owner. I have to become a good manager as well as a good real estate salesperson.
We are so much alike. It's scary because everything you just said was exactly how it went for me the first few years of building my team. And then, no joke, I think my first team member came on in the summer of 14, and then 15, the business more than doubled. We brought on some right people, some people that didn't work out, and we just kept on rolling that speeding train down the highway. And then it wasn't until December of 2017 that I spent a 4-hour plane ride writing out all the things that have become scripts in my brain over the course of my career. So we have a certain way that we explain things to make sure that the client understands it, and we have a certain way to, talk people through pros and cons of certain situations, right? And all that information lives in our head, yet we expect folks to be a representation of our brand and be talking to our clients, and we want the emotional response to be the same, but we've never taken the time to give them all that information that really just came as a byproduct of doing it for so long.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of like a retroactive, okay, let's do this the right way. And it's funny what you said about becoming a manager, because I talk a lot about this with a lot of people in our industry who are making that transition, is that just like you had to learn to be a great real estate agent, or you had to learn to be confident in selling and asking for referrals, and you had to practice that, you also have to learn to be a leader.
Right.
And so I find myself apologizing to my team because I'm still trying to figure out that whole leadership piece, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's bringing it. Yeah, it's and leadership and management are different. I actually now have an operations manager in my business. She's also my listing manager. And, I'm starting to relinquish some of the hiring and the management over to her because I know how to do things. I'm a really great teacher and coach, but management is different. And it's finding that balance of how much time and energy do I put into becoming a good manager, and when do I know just to outsource the management and let somebody else take over that.
Well, the other interesting thing that you mentioned was that when you brought on your first team member, you brought on somebody just like you. And I know a lot of folks that have not found success when they're hiring team members, and they're actually frustrated that they're not just like them. And the reality is that what we're looking for is people that are strong at things that we maybe aren't strong at or don't enjoy, or are, in the journey of your career, you're going to always be graduating to new levels. And so as you move into that role of, I'm a team leader, I'm a manager, I'm a business owner, as opposed to just being the technician in the business that does everything, you have to realize that you're going to want to let go of things that you don't enjoy or that you're not good at. And you're looking for folks that are good at and enjoy those things, as opposed to looking for somebody who's just like you. It's just been an interesting journey. So I'm sure that
it is. It's a little counterintuitive. And, we all naturally gravitate to people that are like us. That's who we're going to relate to. And one of the things I really like about, my operations manager is that she gives me a different perspective of the world. I tend to live in this place of rescuing and saving everyone and everything. And so, I look at someone and go, well, I think they should join the business because I could really help them become X, Y, and Z. And then I need that filter of someone to step in and say, this is not a community service. This is your business. And you need to hire somebody that has the ability to emulate what you're doing and be successful and learn the negotiating skills and take them to that. And then the thing that's been very interesting with Kelly and my business is that basically she's sort of followed my business for a few years and just started making notes and documenting the things I was doing that came so second nature to me that I forgot that they were strategic. I forgot that I did them systematically the same way every time because it's so second nature to me that it's just how I do it. And she would just remark and say, wow, you realize you do this, this, and this each time you talk to so-and-so, and started documenting that. So we're trying to put that together as a really powerful tool for training the people on the team. And, our next step, and here we are doing this video thing. I am not adept at video, and my next step is to really try and do video training for my people so they can actually see me in action, how I would language things and how I would help them overcome objections. And
it's really smart. I feel like that would be a very good next step, because honestly, having a Word document with scripts isn't the same as like having someone's mannerisms and the way that they say things and explain things. So I think that's genius. So will you record yourself actually in the moment with a client, or will you reiterate it after the fact and say, oh, I ran into something that I thought you might want to know how I handled that, and so this is how I handled it?
Yeah, I think it would be B. I think it's there's two things. One is just the basic systems of what I say at an initial consultation each time. And I might do it as a role play, but I'm not going to ever put a client in that awkward position of being on camera.
Right.
Unless they want to do a testimonial for me. That would be the only time I would do that.
Sure.
But aside from that, yes, I think there's that. And then I just need to get in the habit of, when something crazy happens, record it and put a name to it and just say how to overcome a low appraisal, and what did I do to resolve this situation, or how did I deal with the client to share that news, or just little snippets. But I do think that videos are going to be the way that I need to be doing the training, just getting comfortable.
Definitely. And what are your thoughts about, so you did the solo agent thing for 9 or 10 years, then you realize, okay, I'm either going to quit the business or get help, which again is the exact same thing that happened to me. So I just am laughing at how we've clearly been living parallel lives here. But so then you're like, all right, I got to get a team member, and then we're going to do it by osmosis. And now here we are, 4 years later, and you're like, okay, let me create some systems so that we've got something that's plug and play. And I know a lot of folks, the first thing they think of when they hear that is, but then like, how am I going to find the time? And I think I'd be curious to know, like, what are your thoughts on your expectation of volume while you build the systems? Like, do you tell yourself that I accept if my volume plateaus a little bit while I put systems in my place? I mean, put systems in place to give us room to grow? Or is it kind of, I'm just going to put in that extra hours? You know what I'm saying? Like, do you just accept longer hours, or do you accept that maybe there may be a plateau or a dip while you get yourself ready for your next level of your career?
You know, that's a good question, and I'm hoping to kind of explore that a little more with my current coaching. But I will tell you what I've done in the past is put those systems on hold and move a lot slower with the systems so that my business is not slumping. I now have 2 buyer's agents, an operations manager who doubles as my listings manager. I pay a transaction coordinator offsite, and we have a virtual assistant, which is just a little bit of help with database, data entry, that kind of thing. But knowing that I have all these people that I am sort of responsible for their livelihood, I don't want to pull away on production in order to get systems in place. So I'm trying to do it simultaneously, which yes, means working a little harder. It also means actually, instead of finding more time, I've actually found more people, like the virtual assistant, and putting, that operations manager role, trying to leverage other people to help me get there. And the coach is providing me documents, things like that. So I think I'm trying to leverage everything, but I don't want to do it at the expense of the business and hold back, because that would mean that the people working for me are not making the income that I'm hoping that they will make.
Sure. So where did you find your buyer's agents? I'm just curious, because I think that's always a big challenge for folks, is how do you find those right people? And I mean, does Keller Williams support you in that recruiting process, or are they just folks that you've known through your own avenues?
I've had a few hiccups, which is why I have an operations manager hiring. Because again, I said I'm not necessarily discerning at hiring. But I was very, very fortunate with one of my buyer's agents. She had interviewed with a colleague of mine who was also looking for a team, but that colleague was making a shift with her business and wasn't ready to hire at the time. And so she just happened into my lap, and we hit it off, and it's been fantastic. We've been working together a year. My other buyer's agent is newer. She had been on a previous team elsewhere in Keller Williams, and was just looking for the right kind of cultural fit. And, for us in our culture, you have to be pretty smart and witty and have fun all day. And that is what we found. So she's just fantastic as well. And this time I did have my operations manager, Kelly, who happens to be my niece. I had her do the vetting on that hiring for that position, just to make sure I was making the right choice. And she, it's fantastic. We've got a great, powerful group of really strong, capable women, which I'm, pretty passionate about women in business and helping support that success too.
So how much time, I'm just curious, because when you mentioned video, one of the things that intrigued me about that is that because I have an office in Winter Park where I live, and then I've got team members in Denver, and I've got 2 team members out of state, we don't have the benefit of being together as often as we would like, and having that opportunity for osmosis, learning the way we say things, the way we explain things, all that kind of stuff. So video would be a great way to bridge that gap. Do you guys spend enough time together, in the same room, that you have more opportunity for that kind of organic, picking up on the way things are done with your brand?
Yeah. It is a good question. And when I first had Patrick as my first assistant, people thought we were crazy, because we spent a lot of time together instead of really, we did divide and conquer, maybe at open houses or going to 2 different appointments periodically, but we drove around together a lot. So there was so much of that osmosis and intensive training. And each time I've hired someone, it's a little less exposure like that. And I'm trying to figure out how to do that, which is why, I'm hoping video training will help. But yeah, I am doing that. And then, as you know, I spend a week, a month in Seattle. So a lot of what we do is talk on the phone too, and be there as a resource when things come up in that way as well. But just, audio or, a group video call or something like that.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's definitely something that I wanted to touch upon. I think it's really fascinating. So when did you buy the place in Seattle?
3 years ago.
Okay. And did you buy it with the intention of having a week, a month where you're out of the state?
I didn't. So what happened is I went up to Seattle 3 years ago, and it was it was basically love at first sight. I got to Seattle. I thought it was amazing. That is where my first assistant had moved to Seattle, and he was in real estate. And he said, "Hey, do you want to go see this open house? It's a new builder. I want to check it out." So we walked in, and that house was also love at first sight. And I all of a sudden was like, I'm ready. I'm ready to leave Denver. I'm ready to move. I'm buying this house. I'm going to transition my business in 6 months, and I'm going to be in Seattle and work full-time in real estate. So I call it a real estate accident, because I literally bought this house randomly the first weekend that I got to Seattle with no intention of doing that.
That's crazy.
It is.
That's awesome.
It is absolutely crazy. And then reality kind of hit, and I realized I was able to buy that house because of my business here in Denver, and I have a strong business, and I didn't really want to start over at open houses and as a newbie agent in and out in a market I didn't know. And so we set up the house as a vacation rental, and loved the house so much that we still wanted to be able to enjoy it. So somehow I just was able to work it out. I had team members at that point. I had 2 people working for me, and they were just able to cover for me when I went up there. And I realized I was able to do so much of my negotiating, contract negotiating, and writing, and talking to clients on the phone, that I just ended up working this awesome system out where I can go up there once a month, and I still have a buyer's agent that can open doors and show properties. I've done listing appointments via video cam with my listing manager there on site, and it's worked out great.
So when you first did that, because I think that is probably really amazing for most people to listen to, because sometimes it's like we just feel that we theoretically get into this industry so we have freedom and flexibility, and then even if we create space for it, we don't always take advantage of it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
absolutely.
It's like, probably because we're so hungry for the early stages of our career to build it, and then we get it built and we're so grateful for it that we don't want it to sabotage, so we just grind it out, indefinitely.
Yeah.
So when you're there, do you find that it's also a little bit of a recharge for your battery, because you only work what you need to and kind of allow yourself to just breathe?
Absolutely. Absolutely. What I love about it is that I'm working. I'm still in my business. I'm working. I'm on the phone. But what I cannot do, I'm physically limited from dropping everything and running out and showing a property at 6:30 right when someone gets off of work. I have a staff now. I have people that work for me that can go out and do that. And so that means I can actually go to dinner or go walk around the lake at 6:30. I can be on the phone, but I'm in a totally different setting. The demands of me are different because I cannot attend meetings. I cannot go to physically meet a client. So it does recharge my battery. It makes me so much more engaged in my business when I am just checking out for a little bit, and it makes me feel like I really am having time away, and I truly am. It's just getaway time. When you calculate in real estate, I've thought about this so often. Traditional work, people they work 50 weeks a year, but they get 2 days off a week. They get every single weekend. So if you factor in 2 days for those 50 weeks, that's 100 days that we as 7-day a week real estate professionals tend not to get. So I try and fit that in by going up there and feeling like I'm getting that recharge. Otherwise, it's just too exhausting to keep going without a break. And I feel so grateful that I was able to make this work. I always envied people that had these vacation homes or mountain homes. They were able to get away every weekend. And I thought, I am never going to be able to have that life. And then, I don't know, as we were talking before, somehow my dream for this getaway and this house exceeded my rational, logical side that said there's no way this can happen. And somehow it has just happened.
Well, I think it's amazing. It's funny because I recently tried creating a schedule where I quote unquote work in my business every other week and work on my business every other week. So in means back to back to back meetings. We're recording this podcast. We're on coaching calls. We're doing all kinds of stuff. And then on the business is like creating space to take a breath, recharge from that kind of crazy intense schedule, but still be plugged in and still be working on projects that either I need to catch up on or that have been on my mind and I want to create something or whatever it might be. And it's funny because I've successfully created the space, but I don't necessarily know how to lean into it completely yet because I've been so wired to have my pedal to the metal for so many years now that it's really hard. And what I love about the fact that you've been doing this the last 3 years is that your business has continued to grow. And I think that the biggest fear is that if we enjoy our life, our business might go down or dry up. And the reality is that almost every person I've interviewed on this podcast that speaks to this filling your soul and filling your bucket in order to bring the best version of yourself forward to your clients, to your family, and everything else, that is a business strategy. Like it is not only okay, but it should be encouraged to recharge your batteries so that you bring the best version of yourself to everything you do and that you can be having fun, like you said, right?
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that I spent way too many years. That's why I was ready to check out and get out of real estate altogether. 10 years ago, I was exhausted and it wasn't fun anymore. And learning to leverage and have people in my business, it is hard because, people have always joked about, oh, you're a control freak. Well, how many successful people do you know that don't get that comment, you're a control freak? There's a reason we're control freaks. Or there's a reason we have successful businesses because we are kind of control freaks and we want to make sure things are done the way they're done. So learning to outsource is a challenge because you are stepping away and you are relinquishing a little bit of control. But I have learned that my business still runs fine and I check in with my clients and I'm making sure they're happy. And if they're not getting exactly what they want, then I step in. And there are ways to do this. And certainly nothing is done exactly the way you want it done. But I am a much happier, more balanced person for it. And I think I'm a better business owner. I'm a better realtor for my clients. And I am certainly just a better friend for the people that work with me and for my friends and family.
Well, and the other thing is like, in what other industry do you get a job and then become successful at that job and then not graduate to a different level within that industry? Like most folks don't stay in the exact same role, doing the exact same activities for the entirety of their career. A lot of people will change careers, change industries, change jobs. And I find that so many of us that bounced around in other careers prior to this industry, we find it somewhat addicting because it does change every day and we're always learning and it's never stagnant. But there is a point at which you want to take everything you've learned and share that with somebody else. And you, like you said, the social worker aspect of you is that you see opportunity in this industry for anybody who's willing to take the principles and apply them. And you want to give that to people.
Exactly. Yeah. I have 15 years of experience. I built a successful business. I met, transaction volume wise about 30 million a year and, hoping to go higher and not necessarily because I need more income, but because I want to make sure the people working for me are getting that as well. But I want to hit on something that's a different angle than what you talked about, but the exact same principle, which is that not only where do you go, what other kind of businesses do you do the exact same thing over and over after 15 years of experience, you haven't been promoted or changed positions, but also from the consumer side, it's really unusual that a seller can hire a brand new agent right out of the gate or someone with 15 years of experience and pay the exact same general commission fee, the exact same fee. So our compensation never goes up based on level of experience per transaction. So the only way that we increase in this business is by increasing volume and therefore leveraging other people and doing a higher production level. Otherwise, you stay at the same rate. But it is also, it's just an interesting thing I often think about with the consumer, that people so often want to just hire a friend that just got their real estate license. And, you just wouldn't do that probably for your divorce attorney or for your financial planner. But for real estate, they seem to not value the years of experience and recognize that they pay the exact same amount. Right.
No, that's a really good point that's never been brought up before. I never even really thought about that there's no raise, there's no, it's just do more. And
Right.
that's why so many people.
And when you stop, you go to the realtor graveyard, like
Yeah,
the business just dies unless you figure out a way to transition it. And sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, I find that I hear a similar philosophy from a lot of folks that find their way to Keller Williams at a later stage in their career, because there are systems in place to help you scale your business. And it is just that. It's a business that you want to own, and you want to be able to step away for a week or a month and make sure that it still runs without you, because otherwise you just have a job. It's like, if you don't go to work, you don't get paid. And that's where so many of us get stuck, because if you do see your income growing, you're grateful for that and you don't want to lose it. So you just allow and make excuses for working 24/7. And that's just not a life that's attractive, not to me anyway. And I personally felt the same, that I was like ready to get out of the business, because it was wonderful to have success, but not at the expense of health, relationships, time, etc. So,
well, you bring up a really good point, and that is actually why I'm at Keller Williams now. Keller Williams, for me in my early years seemed like, it's a training company, but now more and more experienced agents, we're all going to Keller Williams. One of the philosophical differences that I have found at Keller Williams versus the boutique real estate offices that I've always loved and cherished to be kind of local and homegrown. But the difference is Keller Williams teaches you to be a business owner. And the other businesses, I was selling real estate. It's different. One, I'm a salesperson selling houses. It's a commodity and it's production. The other is be a business owner. Be smart, be strategic, look at your P&L, understand who you're hiring, leverage people, and can you create an exit strategy? And now I truly believe I can. That's why I'm here is, I have a goal of being out of production in 5 years, not out of my business, but having enough people that can do those listings and do the buyer appointments for me, that I can lean into the coaching and the training and share my experience. So there's a legacy that carries on and the business continues. And I don't even think of it financially. Sometimes I think of it in terms of just that concept of recycling and repurposing. Why would anybody spend 25 years building a business to then just let it dwindle away in a year or two by referring to someone that your clients have no relationship with? So rather than doing that, how do we do it strategically? So it's truly a business. Like, you wouldn't walk away from a restaurant and close the doors because you're retiring. You wouldn't walk away from, a bank or a retail business. It's so unique in real estate that the doors just close when you're done. So that's what Keller Williams offers.
It's really interesting that you bring that to mind, because a conversation came up in recent years within the mortgage company I'm with, which is Fairway Independent Mortgage. And it's a pretty young, it's relatively young in terms of leadership. And it's a conversation that came up a few years back when someone did pass, and essentially their business passed with them because there wasn't a system in place for their spouse. Even there was there wasn't anything in place. So it's like, we do have to create a way to make sure that our business lives on, whether it's because we want to retire or whether it's, God forbid something awful happens, that you'd want some kind of legacy, right?
Yeah.
So,
one of the things that I teach the agents that work with me, and for some reason I always did this because it came from a business background anyway, but starting your business from the very beginning as though it's going to be a strong, big, robust business, and that you have the systems in place so that you aren't in that position later where all you did was sales. It's, building a real estate business is so much more than having a nice website and a great brochure. It really is. And I think people get so caught up in the promotional side of things that they forget about the business side of things.
I think that's really important. I think planning for success. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. For anyone who's listening, I'm sorry about the frog in my throat, but planning for success is key, because the minute that you plan for success, first and foremost, you'll have a better chance of achieving it if you're expecting it, as opposed to just having this this is good enough mentality and I'm good with this,
Right.
then that's pretty much all you're going to get. If you plan for massive success, not only will you have a better chance of achieving it, but you'll be prepared for whatever systems, people need to be put in place to support that. And I think so many people, when you're starting out, you think, you know, because it's hard at first, maybe to just get to a consistent level, that maybe you're caught up thinking that I just need to get this many deals going. It's like, well, guess what? You will, if you do the work, you will get the deals. And what you need to do is actually plan for the massive success and avoid the burnout that's happened to too many other folks in our business. Mm-hmm. And also not just survive that success by compromising time, energy, resources, etc. So really just going after it and expecting success, planning for it, and not being afraid to leverage it and leverage people, because we're not actually perfect at everything anyway. So it's okay to find people that are good at stuff that we're not good at.
Right, exactly.
It's like everyone in our business, like, well, I've been doing it by myself for so long, I must be the only one who can do these things.
Right, yeah. And that is, it's a hard thing to relinquish. The thing that's always so important to remember in outsourcing and building a team is that your clients, although we like to think ego-wise that they're attached to us and that I'm the only one that can do it, it's not us personally. It's the service, the level of service we provide, the level of engagement that we provide. And so if we can emulate that, and if we can hire people that can provide that same level of service, then our clients are great. I mean, I know, I love it when I have a client that I can tell that they actually enjoy being with my team member more than me. Then I know I've done my job.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, the system and the system is what's most important, and then also the way that people feel. And if you can get people on your team that care as much as you do about the way people feel, then that's what they're going to remember anyway. You know, they're going to remember how they felt. So finding other loving, caring people, giving them a good system that they can plug into, and then ultimately giving them the empowerment and the wings to fly so that they can have their own successful journey alongside you. So
absolutely. And then one of the things Gary Keller had taught or has always said that I've sort of embraced is he built a company that he wanted to make sure that the vision was big enough that everyone working within the company could also achieve their own personal vision. And I feel that about my own company of Best Properties within Keller Williams, that I have to make sure that my vision is big enough that it can embrace the vision and support the goals and the dreams that the people working for me want to achieve.
I love that. That's good. I think we just dropped the mic right there. That was it. Nailed it.
Nice.
All right. Well, seriously, I do want to let you get on with your day. I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to share your wisdom and your passion for service with everyone listening. For those who are listening, if you're enjoying what you're hearing here, please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and leave a review so that we can continue to get great guests like Susie Best and help other people find us. And Susie, if anybody wanted to get in touch with you to pick your brain, to buy or sell real estate, what's the best way to reach you or your team?
You can text me or call me at 303-520-4243, or you can email. All of our team members are in my email at susie@ilovedenver.com.
Well, I appreciate you, Susie, and now I'm fired up to get on with my day and crush it. I hope you are as well, and thank you again for being on the show.
Thanks, Erin. You're a rock star. Thanks for doing this.
So fun. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.